then I just have one follow-up. So when you work with those students, you work via email? I mean, do you have like face-to-face meetings? Are these students in college? You know, do they have time
They're
to
all in college.
plan a camp like this?
My two head JCs this year are at the University of Wyoming in Laramie and the University of San Diego.
Okay.
It makes it really difficult to have face-to-face meetings. We've traded a lot of emails, a few conference calls, hopefully meeting face-to-face next Sunday, a week from tomorrow.
Okay.
How they get picked is, I mean, you look at their true colors, you guys talked about personality types, how will they mesh. You also observe them during the week and see just how, you know, how they handle themselves during the week as just a junior counselor. It's a difficult decision to make sometimes, but it's probably the most important decision that a chair makes because those guys run our conference.
It is not a popularity contest.
So they're not actually like counselors, they kind of
They
run things with
they
you
literally
and then the
think
other
of them as
20
the
are
MCs.
They're like the facilitator.
They
Yeah.
run the conference
our
from the stage
Okay,
there. But think along the lines of, it's really two people who you know will get the job done. There's a lot of work that goes into, they don't just show up at the conference. We put them to work for
Yeah.
months ahead of time.
It's more like the background than the actual,
Well,
like, there's a lot of front-loaded work.
There's a lot of front-loaded work, but they're the ones that are on the podium.
They're the
They're the ones that
face.
the face. If
Yeah.
you ask the conferees, they'll say they ran the program,
okay.
but in the chairs in the background.
Do you mix it up
The
between
junior
male and
counselors at
female?
any level
Yes.
are EM compensated, that's a lot of time,
Generally.
just because they're all.
They are not compensated. We
You'll
will
have yours, you'll
reimburse
have two
mileage,
females because of this.
and that's it.
Because
So they do not pay to
girls
attend, nor does it, nor do they get paid for it.
So they get free reward while they're there.
Yeah, but why we're giving up a week of, potential work, so.
And they want to be there.
And we have had several junior counselors who have had to back out because of commitments like that. And it's always unfortunate to lose them, but we understand that that's the way it works. And we actually have had several now who either couldn't come the year right after for some reason, but then applied again 2 years later. Or, took 1 year off in between and then came back. I mean, there's such a passion in these kids that they really want to be a part of it that, yeah, they always come back.
Settle down.
I can't. I can't settle down.
I'll give you my phone number.
So you
Call me
said
back.
your counselors come back for 2 years,
Yes.
and then what happens then? Do they stay in touch with the program? Do they get fired?
We're still working on that. At this point, it's not a guarantee for 2 years. You're accepted for 1 and can serve up to 2. You do have to reapply if
Okay.
you're reselected for your second year. The 2 head JCs are chosen from that pile. But basically, everyone else at that point, they've reached their time. We wish we could keep them involved forever, and that's actually a big focus of our board right now is trying to figure out how we can involve them, whether it's on board committees moving forward, whether it's, we've actually had a few then take off 2 or 3 years and come back as a Rotarian and come back as a senior counselor, which has been really cool.
Heather, can I add to that comment?
Yes, please do.
I have observed at some RILAs where some students would have the opportunity to stay on for many years. With our program, with this program, they know from the very beginning that they will age out after 3 years of coming back. At best, they'll become head JC and then they're done. Nobody's ever disappointed when they're done. Sure, they long for it a bit, but it's not like anyone's getting cut from it ever. They simply age out after their years are done.
And it keeps the enthusiasm up of all of the JCs, and it opens up opportunities for additional people, because we look at it as a continuation of learning about leadership.
Because our RILA conference is very powerful for the conferees, but we think it's 10 times more for those who were chosen to be JCs and head JCs. We're creating truly amazing people through that experience.
But because there is one other piece that Bill learned, that they don't know who next year's chair is going to be at RILA.
Right.
Because otherwise, the junior counselors spend the whole week kissing up to that person.
It wasn't bad.
I appreciated that.
How long do you serve as chair? 1 year or 2 years?
One, but sometimes you might do it more than once.
Okay.
I think Kurt's on number 4 or 5 this year.
Now 3.5.
But, and another point too, on the interviewing to become a JC, not only the applications, it is important too that the head JCs actually do phone interviews with, say, their top 20, again, that they are ready to draft. But the phone interviews are important as well as the applications. And I'll also, this is one person's opinion, I think the applications are the least weighted piece of that decision. There, I think recommendations from the previous year's senior counselor, junior counselor are more important. And then the phone interviews, anybody can write an essay, is kind of my view on things. And so it's important, the application process, but I don't put as much weight on it there. That's
You're right.
maybe not an opinion you were looking for.
No, it's perfect, and each team of 3 really does decide what they're going for, what matters to them. And so each group kind of develops their list of questions that they do for phone interviews, and we have them all, so if any of you are interested in any of this material, we're more than happy to share. But one year they were really interested in, how do I want to say it, basically people who were very humble, and people who were just really interested in supporting the Comparees, and that was the biggest quality they were looking for. Other years they're looking for kids who have been exceptional and created service projects all on their own and really been entrepreneurs in terms of serving others. It really depends on what the team is most interested in and creating for their conference that year, and they choose their own counselors. So it really is up to them. I would encourage for anyone and everyone to get your graduates involved in some way or another. If it's not feasible to have them as counselors, that's fine, but get them on your committee. Get them involved with the planning, get them involved with the promoting, get them involved with whatever you can, because they really are a group of amazing, inspired people who are ready to go. They're ready to spread the word and spread the gospel for you. So I would encourage you to utilize that force. And I think it also turns out being a great thing for the Comparees.
I would also encourage that, you touched on this earlier, the relationship between the Rotarian and the counselor is so powerful and lasting. I've known Heather now for 10 years, that's about right?
Yeah.
10 years, and I can tell you everything pretty much that's going on in her life almost. And from the wedding last year and all kinds of things in her job at CU and such there. But I've had contact just this past week with 4 different head JCs that I worked with over the last several years there. And that relationship is really powerful. And one of the reasons why we keep coming back as well.
Well, one of the pieces when they're interviewing and selecting the JCs, there is some sort of randomness. It's a crapshoot. Heather was not picked
Oh,
as a JC.
this is a great story.
She was picked as an alternate.
By the way, this is my dad, for those of you who don't know. He has
That's a great lesson, because when you're picking, let's say you go to you say your top 20, based on again interviews and applications and such, you don't really know those are the best 20 out of 120 that applied there. Heather was a 5th alternate that year out of 20, so she was means 5 other kids ahead of her had to drop out who couldn't be a JC for her to come in. She was a 5th alternate. Well, within probably 3 days, we knew she was a star as far as being at Riley, but we didn't know that initially just from the applications and the interviews there. But somebody like a Heather or a KJ, it's amazing how good they become. So you don't really know just from interviews if you've got the best 20 there, but they're all going to be good. Some at 19 years old rewrite the entire manual for you. And that's been used around the world now.
You guys just stop. So I know I'm over
No,
time.
you're fine.
I got one other thing that I wanted to say about that was also with these graduates, one thing that we're starting to do more and more of that I think is really powerful is figuring out, again, what else they can do. When they're done being a counselor, even when they're done being a comparee and don't get picked the next year, what do we do with that energy? And there have been examples, for Dana, who talked this morning about training, is working on a program through her school where she is implementing mini RILAs in elementary schools in her district. And she's using past counselors and past RILA graduates as her group that's doing this. I mean, there are so many ways for these students to stay involved in Rotary, which is not just through these conferences and using them as counselors, but keeping them engaged however you can. Call them to help with your club fundraiser. I mean, who cares? Whatever it is, keeping that energy active and involved. And we've seen some really cool spin-offs. RILA Plus may have been mentioned this morning. Does that ring a bell to anybody?
It wasn't really, a couple people have heard about it.
Okay, so RILA Plus was a program that was created a few years ago and is a RILA-like experience for Easter SEALs. And that was something that spun off from a couple previous head counselors and that sort of thing. And they now are serving with these students who have these disabilities and giving them a RILA-like experience in the summer. So So there's so many ways that this is impacting our community and our young people in this area that have been really impressive. So, I guess we'll move into, you told me not to take questions.
No,
I know
no,
we
no,
have a
no,
bunch of
that's
others.
fine. In fact, you can just keep on going.
No, it's been wonderful. It's been a great experience. So I was trying not to present as biased of a view, but I obviously am very biased in terms of the way that we run things. So thank you so much for all that you do. I know each of you is just an incredible, incredible individual to spend your time doing this and to be impacting the hundreds and thousands of young lives that you do. I can just say personally that I would not be half the person I am without the influence of what you people have done and what you've put together. So it's incredible, and I know that I owe all of you a big thank you.